I'm Glen. I'm from the MEBA team, and actually Andy wanted me to go ahead and explain some things about the numbers that I do on a monthly basis. I've been tracking numbers for real estate transactions in 38 cities for the last, I've been doing this since July of 2005. So he kind of wanted me to explain a few things and maybe talk a little bit about some of the trends that are going on at this point. It's interesting because I've been tracking this for that long, and the inventory at this point is at the lowest levels that I've seen since June of 2005. So what's happening is the amount of houses that are for sale have dropped dramatically. In the meantime, the pendings have gone up. So those are ones that are in contract. And what I do is I usually track and look at a ratio of actives versus pending. That sort of corresponds with a supply and demand theory. So if you look at this graph, if you look at this graph going from left to right, what I'll do is I'll talk about, I'll list on a city by city basis all the actives, how many actives are in each city, and then I try to give you an idea of what percent are REOs, that's foreclosures, and what percent are short sales. And one of the interesting things that's happened as well is that the REOs are not as big of a factor as they used to be. Back in about, say, around the fall of last year, we were looking at a huge percentage of the sales and the actives being foreclosures. And now if you look at the actives in each one of these cities, the numbers you're looking at, that's greatly been reduced. So same thing with the pendings. And if you go across, I did the same thing with pendings. I basically showed you what percentage you're looking with REOs, what percentage you're looking at with short sales, and then the next columns are it's this ratio. And if you look at the bottom where I actually do the sum for each one of these things, that ratio kind of tells you the supply and demand in terms of houses for sale that are available versus ones that have been bought that are in contract. So you're looking at basically buyers and sellers, and it kind of gives us a little bit of an idea of whether you're in a seller's market or a buyer's market. And just when I'm looking at these ratios, anything under under 1.0, anything under 1, I guess, is basically a buyer's market. And back in 2005, we had numbers well over 1. That's when we had a seller's market. We had very little inventory and lots of buyers out there. Well, guess what? We're back there again, and it's pretty amazing. And you can see how just in the last 6 months how this has trended up dramatically. I mean, we went the bottom, as I call it, you were at a 0.13, which means that you had just a ton of inventory and very, very, very little buyers. Everybody was sort of sitting on the fence. And as of March, I mean, this is sort of tracking March, you can see these numbers going up dramatically, and it's already gone over the 1 ratio. You're looking at well over the 1 ratio. And bottom line is, we're back there again where we've got very little inventory to offer. We've got a bunch of buyers that have come into the market. You've got buyers that are now looking at houses that cost maybe $300,000 or $400,000, that they're now looking at maybe $150,000, $200,000, that sort of thing. So now all of a sudden they can afford these houses, and when they're kind of comparing it to rent versus buy, it looks like buying makes a lot more sense for a lot of these clients. The other thing too is investors have come into the market as well. They're looking at properties that are finally cash flowing, so that makes some sense to buy some of these things, and you can actually make some money rather than just worry about trying to get it on the appreciation side only. So anyway, the other thing I did was at the last 2 columns I talk about the month supply. That's another thing that's dramatically gone down. A month supply is just how much inventory do you have out there. We've been well over 10 months supply in all of these areas. But the thing that's really interesting is we've had some of these cities that were hardest hit with high inventories and high foreclosures. We were up well over 20 months supply. Now, when you're looking at these numbers, currently we're for the 38 cities, you're at 2.2 months supply, which is very, 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 very low. And you've got a lot of cities that are under 2, some right around 1 or under, and that's again a strong. That basically is again a very strong, indicates a strong seller's market. So that's a dramatic change, and we've seen it in the last 6 months. That's pretty key. What people generally use as a rule of thumb is the norm is 6 months supply. So that's dramatic. Then the second page, we actually talk about what's happened in terms of sales over the last 4 months. That kind of gives us a little bit of better idea of what's happened more recently. I put, what your total sales for each one of these cities on an annual basis, just to kind of give you a little bit of a ballpark on what kind of numbers you're looking at. But the rest of the numbers are based on the last 4 months sales, and I also showed again, how much of an influence that REOs and pending sales are going to be. So again, the foreclosure sales is still up close to 50%, but that's one of the reasons why is that you've got escrows that have lasted so very long, and these things actually got started anywhere from 2 to 4 months ago. So again, that's dropping because back in the fall of last year, you probably had 75 to 90% of the sales were foreclosures. So that's dropping off, and we're just not getting foreclosures replacing the inventory at this point. They're just trickling onto the market. The other things I did was again, to give you a better idea, a snapshot, I listed for the sales in the last 4 months, I listed what the average sales price was along with the median sales price. And then I also put what your average days on market is. So it kind of gives you an idea how long it takes to sell these homes. But the final thing, which is another indication of what's going on, is I compared sales price to listing price to kind of get an idea of, in relation to listing price, were we selling on average under asking or over asking or right about asking? And as you can see, most of these cities, you're pretty close to asking, and in some cases you're actually on average getting over asking. And again, that's a big change that's happened in the last 3-4 months. Last year, again, we were talking about how much under can we buy this house. Well, now we're actually looking at, because you've got a depleted inventory, you're looking at so many buyers. We're looking at if it's a good property, if it's priced well in the market, it's a desirable area. In most cases, you're looking at multiple offers. And now people are thinking in terms of, well, if I can get this house, how much over do I have to pay to get this house? And a lot of times it's coming in on average about asking or slightly more than that. So I don't know. And if you've got any other questions at this point, I think that kind of covers us.
Yeah, I think that's great, Glenn. Thanks for your update of the East Bay housing market ending September 1st.
Okay.
Take care.
See you later.